Hi everyone, I'm Missy and I am glad to have you here today. Today I'm back in my kitchen and I'm going to show you how to make bone broth. And I want to tell you real quick before I forget that at the end of this video I have something that I want to show you. So if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you something that is really cute. Also, I wanted to say that, if you're new here, I'm glad to have you and I hope that you will enjoy the video. If you're not new here and you've been around for a while but you haven't subscribed to my channel, go and do that before you leave today. I really appreciate everybody who subscribes and I want you to be a part of this community that we have here at Rambling Rose Farmhouse. So, on to the bone broth. I want to talk for just a minute about some of the health benefits of bone broth and why you might want to make bone broth, because there may be people here who've never heard of bone broth before, or they're thinking, why in the world would I want to make that? So just want to tell you a little bit about that and then I'll get on to how to make it. So bone broth is really known for gut health. That's the thing that you hear the most about whenever you hear about bone broth. But there are some other benefits too. I just want to say that I personally saw the benefits of bone broth with my little 2-year-old granddaughter. She was born with a lot of issues, and at one point her mother started feeding her bone broth that she made herself, and it made a huge difference. So if I didn't believe in it before, I really did after that. So I have seen, some benefits. I'm sure that according to what your issues are, some people probably see more benefits than others. So bone broth, when you make bone broth, you're making it with bones and you're making it with all different parts of the bones, not just, like one type of bone, but the connective tissue and all those things. So I'm going to read off some of what is in these bones that ends up in your broth. And, then when you eat it or drink it or whatever, you get the benefits from it. So I have a little cheat sheet over here. So bones are full of vitamins and minerals. Different parts of the bones have different things. But some of the things that they contain are calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, glucosamine and collagen, vitamin A, vitamin K, zinc, iron, manganese, selenium, omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. So, and other amino acids. So that is a lot of stuff. So the things that bone broth possibly helps with are digestion and gut health, which we've already talked about that. That's a big one. Inflammation, joints. If you have, issues with your joints, bone broth can help with that. That's the collagen and the glucosamine that would help with that. Weight loss and brain function. So that's just a few things that, benefits that you might get from bone broth. So that is one reason that you might want to make some. It's really easy and you don't need much. So you just need bones. You need a little apple cider vinegar and you need water. 3 ingredients, super easy. Now I'm going to make mine in the Instant Pot, but I'm going to tell you how to make it, on the stovetop or in the crock pot if you don't have an Instant Pot. So don't worry about that. You can do it any of those ways. So I'll tell you as we go along how you can make it other ways. So the biggest question that you might have might be, where do you get your bones? We get our bones because we raise our own meat, and so when we take it to the butcher, we get our bones back when we get our meat back, and then we're able to use them to make bone broth. But if you don't raise your own meat, I'm going to give you some suggestions for places that you might be able to find bones. And one suggestion would be, if you can find a farmer which sells meat, sells calves, which they're all around. I mean, it's a pretty popular thing now, but you can buy usually a whole or a half or a quarter. You can find friends to go in with you and you can split something. And so whatever part of that you get, even if you only get a quarter, you're going to get some bones. And you can also, if whoever's getting the other part doesn't want the bones, you can probably get those too. So that is one good way to get bones and to get bones that where they're coming from, local farmer, how they're raised, all of that kind of thing. I do want to say here though, you need to be aware that bones are not normally something they give you back. So if you take your calf to the butcher to get it processed for you, if you don't specifically ask for your bones, you're probably not going to get your bones. So you need to know that, or you will be sadly disappointed. So you need to make sure that you ask for your bones. You need to make sure that they know that you plan to cook with them, because sometimes if they don't know that, they'll just grab bones out of their barrel that they've been using all day. They've been throwing them in this barrel. Like if people go in and ask like for bones for dog food and stuff like that, they'll just grab some out of there and they'll give them those. So you need to make sure and let them know that you plan on using them yourself, that you want the ones that came from your calf, all of that kind of thing. And they'll be happy to give them to you. When we first started doing this years ago, I didn't know about the benefits of bones and I didn't get them, and they never gave them to me. So you need to be sure and ask for them. But if that's not a possibility, there are still other places. If you have a grocery store, a lot of the local grocery stores still cut their own meat some. So you might be able to get it from the grocery store. You can go ask them for bones. They might sell them to you. Also, if you have like a local butcher shop, you may be able to get bones from them. If you cannot find bones anywhere like that, then the other thing that I would suggest is that you change maybe the way you cook, or change the way you purchase, maybe I should say, your meat, and start opting to purchase meat with bones in instead of bones out. And then you can use those bones to make your bone broth. So every time you cook a piece of meat, like if you buy a round steak and it's got a bone in there, you can cut that bone out and save it until you get enough to make a pot of bone broth. And the way I save my bones like that is I just have a Ziploc freezer bag in the freezer, and every time I cut a bone out of a piece of meat, out of a roast, steaks, whatever, I stick them in that bag and I just stick it back in the freezer, and then when that bag gets full, I have enough bones. So I do that with my regular cuts of meat. Even though I have all these other bones too, I still save my others and make broth out of them. Same with chicken. You can buy whole chickens and then you can use the bones out of the chicken to make bone broth. So anytime that your family eats anything that has bones in it, you can save those bones and just save them in your freezer until you have enough and you're ready to make some bone broth, and you can use those. So if you want to make bone broth, you can get bones to do it with. So, pretty easy. Just get you some bones, get you some apple cider vinegar, and, either an Instapot, a crock pot, or a pot on the stovetop is all you need to make your bone broth. So if you watched my vanilla recipe where I talked about using the alcohol to extract the good things out of the vanilla beans into the the extracting liquid, that's kind of the same thing we're doing here. And here we're using the apple cider vinegar to help extract the benefits out of those bones into the water, which is what's going to be your broth. So that's the purpose of the apple cider vinegar. You don't need a whole lot. You just use about 1 or 2 tablespoons in your pot. Okay, so the way you're going to do this, regardless of whether you do it in a pot on your stove or in your crock pot or in your Instapot, is that you're going to place your bones into whatever you're using. Then you're going to cover them with water. And it's a really good idea to use filtered water if you have a water filter. We have a Berkey, and that's the water that I'm using. We love our Berkey water filter. So, that's a good idea if you have it. If you don't, just use your tap water, whatever you have. And then you're going to place 1 or 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Okay, let's try that one more time. You're going to place a couple of tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, in the water of your bones. And what you want to do when you put your bones into whatever you're using, your pot, you want to cover them completely with water, but you don't want to leave this much water on top of the bones. You want to cover them but you don't want to put too much or you won't get as much gel, and that's what you're looking for in your bone broth. And it's different, you know, it gels at different amounts. It's not always going to be the same. Every time you do it, it's going to turn out different, probably according to what bones you have in there at the time. But if you put too much liquid, you're not going to get as much gel. So you want to cover your bones, but you don't want to cover them and then have a whole lot of, you know, water on top of that. And if you use the Instapot, there is a maximum fill line. You want to make sure you don't go over the maximum fill line because you're going to be cooking these under pressure if you do it this way. So we're going to go ahead, and my bones are still frozen. They were in my freezer and I didn't thaw them, just took them out, and I'm just going to put them in here just like this. And, you know, actually they're going to be sticking up a little bit, but as soon as it gets going, they're going to all fall down into there, and so it'll be good. And then I'm going to cover them with water. Make sure I'm not getting over that max line, and I'm not. And then I'm just going to dump a little bit of apple cider vinegar in here. I'm not going to measure because it's not, you know, a real precise thing. And then I'm going to have to move it over here on the other counter to plug it in. And so what you're going to do if you make your bone broth in the Instapot is you're going to do pressure cook, and then the keep warm will be on, so it will keep your broth warm until you get back to it to do whatever you need to do with it. And high pressure, and it's already going 4 hours, which mine came upset on that probably because that was the last thing that I did. And you want to make sure your vent is on seal, not unvent, so you want it to be sealed. And so that's all there is to the whole Instapot. You just leave it and let it do its thing. Now there is a broth setting on there. You can do it with that broth setting if you want to. You probably might want to let it run through, and then when it stops, just start it again and let it do another cycle, because that's not quite as efficient as doing it on the pressure setting. So the pressure setting is the way that I do it. So after this is finished making this broth, I'll pour the broth off of the bones, cover them back up with water, more apple cider vinegar, put them back in the Instapot, and do this again. So I'll use the bones twice to make more broth, because when they come out of here the first time, they still have good stuff left in there. So you don't want to just throw them away and not use any of that. So you can go ahead and do it, you know, twice. The second batch of broth probably won't be as thick as the first batch, but it still will have, you know, good benefits in there. So the Instapot is super easy to do. Now, if you do it on the stovetop or in the crock pot, that's easy too. The same way, put your bones in, cover them with water, add some apple cider vinegar. Now, some people like to add, you know, seasoning, salt and pepper, and even some vegetables. You can do that if you want to. It's not necessary. You're still getting the benefits of your bones, whether you add anything extra in there or not. But you can do that if you want to. If you're doing it on the stovetop, you want to bring it to a boil and then turn it down to simmer. And you want to simmer it anywhere from 12 to 24 or even longer hours. The longer you simmer it, the more benefits you're going to extract from your broth. So, you know, you have to watch it a little bit closer than when you stick it in the Instapot. And, you know, it takes a long time. But in the end, you get a really good product. In the crock pot, you know, it's a little closer to like the Instapot. You're still going to let it simmer in that crock pot for a really long time, but it's kind of more, you know, you don't have to watch it quite as close. I guess unless you have the kind that cuts off after a certain amount of time, you're going to have to go back and start it back up. So, you know, there are different kind of crock pots. So you might have to, I guess, watch it, come back, start it going again. Just leave it in there and just keeps going through the crock pot cycle until you've gone for 24 or longer hours. And then when you get it done, you're just going to drain your bones off, and you have your broth, you have your bones. I will show you what this broth looks like when it comes out. So here's my finished broth. Now, I took this out and put it in the refrigerator overnight so that it would be getting cool, because I wanted to be able to let the fat come to the top of it so that I could take it off, because I'm going to can this broth and you don't really want a whole lot of fat in it when you can it. It can keep your jar from sealing well. But if you need fat in your diet, then it's fine to leave the fat in there. You don't have to take it off, especially, you know, if you're going to freeze it or just use it out of your refrigerator. And one thing we didn't talk about was, what do you do with your broth? So I'm going to tell you different ways that I use mine. Now, a lot of people just drink it. They'll just heat it up. They'll add some salt, pepper, whatever they want in there to make it taste better, and then they drink it. That's usually what people do if they're using it for medicinal purposes. But I use my broth. I keep this, try to keep some made all the time, and I use it in soups and stews, like if I make a pot of beans, when I make a gravy, like any of those things, chili, any of those things that you add liquid to, I try to add the broth instead of just water. And that way all of those things have all of those good vitamins and minerals and nutrients and everything that we talked about earlier in those dishes. So that way my whole family eats it and gets the benefits of the broth, whereas they probably wouldn't just sit and, you know, drink it out of a cup. So this is what the broth looks like. It looks like Jell-O almost. So this has a lot of that collagen in it, and the gelatin, it makes it, you know, look like this. And this is a really amazingly good amount. So every time you make broth, it might not be gelled quite this much, and that's okay. You'll notice that it's still thicker than water, you know, like what a normal broth, like if you bought broth at the store, you know, you pour that out, it's really thin. So your broth that you make from bones will be thicker than that. But every batch will be different, so don't be surprised if some is not as thick as others. It's still good. But anyway, so this is what this broth looks like. To keep it, you can either use it out of the, you know, just keep it in your refrigerator. If you're going to use it like in the next week, you can do that. You can freeze it, or you can can it. And so any of those ways are, you know, acceptable ways to store your broth. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope that I've covered everything about it. If you have any questions, you can always ask me in the comments. And if I know the answer, I'll be happy to answer that for you. And so I hope that I've encouraged some of y'all to go ahead and try to make some bone broth for yourself. So now I'm going to show you the thing that I told you that I think is really cute. I'm going to move this out of the way so that I don't get anything there. And I'm going to grab it real quick. Okay, so I don't usually, you know, show any of our little farm animals very often. But I just wanted to show these little guys to y'all because I think, or girls, whatever. We're not really sure what they are, but I just think they're the cutest little things. So these are already a week and a half old. We had a hen that was setting, and we also had some eggs in the incubator. They're shaking. They're scared. They know they're on film maybe. And so we hatched them out. But I wanted to show you these. Let's see if this one will sit here and wait. These came out of an egg that's this big. So this is how tiny they were when they hatched. And this is how big they are a week and a half later. So these are not full-size chickens. These are little bantams. And honestly, I just think they're the cutest thing ever. I'm going to show you the difference in the size of these little bantam chickens to a regular size chicken. Okay, so this one hatched at the same time. They're the same age, but this is a full size. This is an Americana full size hen or chicken, and this is the little phantom chicken. So anyway, that was all. Just a little chicken thing here at the end of my video. I hope y'all enjoyed this too. I just think they're the cutest thing. I am a chicken person. Some people aren't, but I am. And so I just think these are the most adorable little thing ever. Well, I'm glad y'all are here today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure and subscribe to my channel and be sure and come back next week. And I will probably be canning bone broth. So I'll see you then.